Sign it, Leah. Stop pretending you have a choice. Tucker's voice wasn't just cold, it was bored. He checked his Rolex, tapping the platinum face with an irritated rhythm. Trinity is waiting in the car, and we have a reservation at Le Monde. You're wasting my future. Leah King looked at the divorce papers, then at the man she had served faithfully for 5 years. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She picked up the pen and signed. But as the ink dried, she looked up and whispered, "The future has a funny way of remembering the past, Tucker. Don't choke on your champagne." The sound of the pen scratching against the paper sounded like a bone snapping in the silent, air-conditioned office. It was a final, irrevocable sound. Leah King placed the pen down on the mahogany desk, her movements deliberate and slow, refusing to give them the satisfaction of seeing her hand tremble. Across from her, Tucker Gates let out a sigh that was entirely too theatrical for a Tuesday morning. He snatched the papers up before the ink was even fully dry, scanning them to ensure she hadn't tried to pull a fast one. "Finally," he muttered, sliding the documents toward his attorney. "I thought you were going to drag this out for another month just to be spiteful." Leah sat back in the leather chair, feeling small. She was wearing a simple grey cardigan and jeans, a stark contrast to Tucker's bespoke navy suit. "I never wanted anything from you, Tucker. I just wanted a marriage. A marriage requires 2 people on the same level, Leah." A voice cut in from the corner of the room. Fiona Ford stood by the window, her silhouette framed by the sprawling city skyline of Seattle. She turned, her face a mask of elegant cruelty. Fiona was Tucker's aunt, but in the Ford family hierarchy, she was the matriarch, the gatekeeper, and the executioner. She walked toward the desk, her heels clicking like gunshots on the hardwood. "You were a placeholder," Fiona said, her tone conversational, as if discussing the weather. "We needed Tucker to appear settled to the board to secure his VP position. You served that purpose. You were quiet, domestic, and plain. Safe. But now, the company is expanding. Tucker needs a partner who shines. Someone like Trinity." Trinity Chambers. The name hung in the air like a foul scent. Leah knew her, or rather, knew of her. Trinity was an influencer, a socialite, the kind of woman who treated life like a photo op. She was currently waiting in Tucker's Porsche downstairs, likely live-streaming her wait. "Is that what Isaac thinks?" Leah asked quietly. The mention of Isaac Ford, the reclusive and ailing billionaire patriarch of the family, made the room freeze for a microsecond. Isaac was Fiona's brother and the source of the family's immense wealth. Fiona's eyes narrowed. "My brother has been bedridden for months. He doesn't concern himself with the help. And make no mistake, Leah, that is what you were. Unpaid help." Tucker stood up, buttoning his jacket. He looked handsome, the kind of handsome that money buys. Perfect teeth, perfect skin, perfect hair. But his eyes were empty. "Look, Leah, we're not monsters. The prenup is ironclad. You get nothing from the Ford assets. But," he pulled a check from his pocket and slid it across the table. "Here's $5,000 for a deposit on an apartment. Consider it severance." Severance. Leah looked at the check. $5,000 for 5 years of nursing Tucker through the flu, managing his schedule, hosting his dinner parties, tolerating Fiona's insults, and caring for Isaac when the nurses were too exhausted to deal with his dementia episodes. Leah stood up. She didn't touch the check. "Keep it," Leah said, her voice gaining strength. "You'll need it for the valet." Tucker scoffed, a jagged, ugly sound. "Don't be a martyr. You have no degree, no job history for 5 years, and no family. You are nothing without the name Gates attached to you." "I was Leah King before I met you," she said, clutching her purse strap. And I'm Leah King again. That's enough." "Get out," Fiona snapped, waving a hand dismissively. "And don't think about going to the press. We have lawyers who will bury you so deep you'll need a coal miner's lamp to see the sun." Leah turned and walked to the heavy oak doors. She paused, her hand on the brass handle. She wanted to scream. She wanted to flip the table. She wanted to tell them about the nights she stayed up with Isaac, reading to him when his own family couldn't be bothered to visit. But she knew they wouldn't care. "Goodbye, Tucker," she said softly. "I hope she's worth it." She walked out. The elevator ride down was a blur. When the doors opened to the lobby, she saw the Porsche parked out front. The window was down. Trinity Chambers was there, oversized sunglasses on her nose, tapping furiously on her phone. She looked up, saw Leah, and smirked. A cruel, victorious twisting of red lips. She raised a Starbucks cup in a mock toast. Leah walked past the car, past the doorman who wouldn't make eye contact, and out into the grey drizzle of the city. She was 32 years old, divorced, homeless, and broke. But for the first time in 5 years, she could breathe. 6 months had passed. The transition from the velvet-lined cages of the Ford estate to a damp studio apartment in the sketchy part of town was jarring, to say the least. Leah King had learned that dignity didn't pay the electric bill. She was working 2 jobs. By day, she was a barista at a high-volume coffee shop downtown, her hands constantly smelling of roasted beans and sanitizer. By night, she stocked shelves at a grocery store. It was grueling, back-breaking work. But it was honest. Her only lifeline was Wren Noble. Wren was a friend from before the marriage, a sharp-tongued, chaotic graphic designer with a heart of gold and hair that changed color every week. Currently, it was electric blue. "You look exhausted," Wren said, sliding a plate of pasta toward Leah across her tiny kitchen table. "Eat. You're fading away." Leah managed a tired smile. "I'm okay, Wren. Really. I made rent this month with $50 to spare." "Tucker is in the tabloids again," Wren said cautiously, watching Leah's reaction. "He and Trinity are apparently hunting for a European summer home. It makes me want to vomit." "Let them," Leah said, twirling her fork. "It feels like a different life, like a movie I watched once and walked out of." "Have you heard from anyone? The old staff?" "No," Leah said. "Fiona made everyone sign NDAs. They aren't allowed to talk to me. If they do, they lose their pensions." Leah took a bite of pasta, savoring the warmth. She missed Isaac, though. That was the one ache that wouldn't go away. The old man was grumpy, difficult, and often confused. But in his lucid moments, he had been kind. He had been the only one who asked her about her day. He had been the only one who saw her. "Leah, my girl," he would say, his hands trembling as he held a cup of tea she made him. "You have a spine of steel. Don't let them convince you it's glass." A breaking news alert flashed on Wren's TV in the living room. The localized news chime, urgent and loud, made them both look up. Breaking news. Isaac Ford, billionaire industrialist and founder of Ford Dynamics, dead at 88. The fork dropped from Leah's hand, clattering loudly against the ceramic plate. The screen showed a stock photo of Isaac from 20 years ago, looking stern and powerful. Then it cut to a live feed outside the Ford estate. There were already vans, reporters, and flowers piling up at the gate. "Oh, Leah," Wren whispered, reaching across the table to grab her hand. Leah stared at the screen. She didn't cry immediately. It was a hollow impact, like being punched in the stomach underwater. "He's gone." "I'm so sorry, honey." "I have to go," Leah said, standing up abruptly. "Go where? To the estate?" "Leah, they'll eat you alive. Fiona will have security, toss you onto the pavement. I have to pay my respects, Leah said, her voice trembling but resolute. Not for them. For him. He was my friend, Wren. In that house of vipers, he was the only human being. Leah, wait, Wren said, standing up. If you're going, you're not going looking like a barista. You're going to look like a woman who survived them. Wren went to her closet and pulled out a black dress. It was vintage, simple, and impeccably cut, a thrift store find that looked like $1 million. Put this on, and wear the pearls your grandmother left you. If they want to treat you like an outsider, fine. But be an outsider they can't look away from. Leah looked at the dress, then at the TV screen where Tucker was now giving a statement, looking somber and fake, with Trinity clinging to his arm in a black dress that was far too short for a funeral announcement. You're right, Leah said. I'm done hiding. The funeral was held 3 days later at St. Jude's Cathedral, a massive Gothic structure that reeked of old money and incense. It was a closed service, invite only, which meant half the city's elite were trying to bribe their way in. Leah parked her rusted Honda Civic 3 blocks away to avoid the valet judgment and walked in the rain. She held a black umbrella, her heels clicking on the wet pavement. When she reached the steps, security was tight. Large men in earpieces were checking a list on an iPad. Leah stepped up. The guard, a burly man named Mike, whom she recognized from the estate, looked down at her. His eyes widened. Miss King. Hello, Mike, she said gently. I'm here to see Isaac. Mike looked at the list. Her name wasn't on it. Obviously. Miss King, Mrs. Ford, Fiona. She gave strict instructions, family and approved guests only. I was his daughter-in-law for 5 years, Mike. I cleaned his feeding tube. I read him the newspaper every morning. You were there. You saw who cared for him. Mike looked conflicted. He shifted his weight. I know, Mum. I know you did. But if I let you in, I lose my job. Leah nodded, understanding. She wouldn't destroy a working man's livelihood. She turned to leave, defeat washing over her. Let her in. The voice was deep, smooth, and commanded instant obedience. Leah turned. Walking up the steps was a man she didn't recognize instantly, but she knew the aura. He was tall, wearing a charcoal suit that cost more than her entire life's earnings. He had dark hair, sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, and he carried a leather briefcase. Mr. Drake, Mike stammered. Ms. Ford said, I don't care what Fiona said, the man replied. He stepped up beside Leah, offering her his arm. My name is Landon Drake. I am Isaac Ford's personal attorney and the executor of his estate. My instructions supersede Fiona's, and my instructions are that Ms. King is welcome. Leah looked at him, bewildered. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, Landon murmured, as he guided her past the stunned security guard. Just keep your head up. It's going to get ugly. They walked into the cathedral. The heavy doors closed behind them, shutting out the noise of the city. The air was cool and smelled of lilies. The pews were filled with black-clad mourners, politicians, business rivals, socialites. And in the front row, the Ford family. Fiona was wearing a veil, acting the part of the grieving sister perfectly. Tucker sat next to her, checking his phone surreptitiously. Trinity was next to him, looking bored and examining her manicure. Landon walked Leah down the center aisle. The sound of their footsteps echoed. Heads turned. Whispers started. A low hiss of gossip that spread like wildfire. Is that the ex-wife? What is she doing here? Look at her dress. Is that vintage? Who is she with? Is that the Wolf of Wall Street lawyer? They reached the front. Fiona turned around, sensing the disturbance. When she saw Leah, her face went pale. then red with rage. She stood up, abandoning all pretense of mourning. "You!" Fiona hissed, her voice echoing slightly in the vast church. "How dare you? This is a private service." Tucker jumped up, looking panicked. "Leah, what the hell are you doing here?" "Paying my respects," Leah said, her voice steady, bolstered by Landon's presence beside her. "Get out!" Trinity sneered, leaning over the pew. "You're embarrassing yourself. You aren't family anymore." "She stays," Landon said. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried a weight that silenced the entire room. "Ms. King has every right to be here." Fiona glared at the lawyer. "You work for us, Landon. Remember that. Security." "Actually, Fiona," Landon said, adjusting his glasses, "I worked for Isaac, and now I work for the estate. You don't sign my checks yet. Now sit down so we can bury your brother with the dignity he deserves." The tension was thick enough to choke on. Fiona looked around, realizing that causing a scene in front of the senator and the mayor would be social suicide. She sat down, her body stiff with fury. Tucker shot Leah a look of pure venom. Leah took a seat in the pew directly behind them, next to Landon. Throughout the service, Leah didn't look at the Fords. She kept her eyes on the mahogany casket. She remembered Isaac's laugh. She remembered the way he would sneak chocolate when the doctors weren't looking. Tears silently tracked down her cheeks. She was the only one in the front 2 rows actually crying. When the service ended, the priest announced that the burial would be private, but the reading of the last will and testament would occur the following morning at the Ford headquarters. As the crowd began to disperse, Tucker leaned back over the pew, getting close to Leah's face. "Enjoy the show today, Leah," he whispered. "Because tomorrow, we get everything, and you go back to whatever gutter you crawled out of." Leah wiped her cheek. She looked Tucker in the eye. "Goodbye, Isaac," she whispered to the casket, ignoring her ex-husband completely. As she walked out, Landon Drake fell into step beside her. "Be at the headquarters tomorrow at 9 a.m. sharp," he said. "Why?" Leah asked. "I don't want anything. I just wanted to say goodbye." Landon stopped and looked at her. His eyes were dark and unreadable, but there was a flicker of something like respect in them. "It's not about what you want, Leah," he said. "It's about what Isaac wanted. Be there." He walked away, leaving her standing on the steps of the cathedral, the rain beginning to fall again, washing away the dust of the city, but not the feeling that a storm was coming. A storm that would tear the roof off the Ford dynasty. The Ford Dynamics headquarters was a glass monolith piercing the gray Seattle sky, a testament to industrial might and cold ambition. For Leah, stepping out of the elevator onto the executive floor felt like walking into a lion's den wearing a steak coat. She was dressed in her best professional outfit, a charcoal blazer and trousers she had bought on sale at an outlet mall. It was neat and respectable, but against the backdrop of Italian marble floors and abstract art that cost more than her childhood home, it felt woefully inadequate. She walked down the plush corridor toward the main boardroom. The silence here was heavy, pressurized. As she approached the double-glass doors, she could hear voices raised in agitation. "I'm telling you, we sell the biotech division immediately," Tucker's voice rang out, arrogant and loud. "It's a money pit. We liquefy the assets, buy the island in Greece for the retreat center, and rebrand. It's what the market wants. Patience, Tucker," Fiona's voice soothed, though it carried a razor-sharp edge. "Let's get the legalities out of the way first. Landon is a stickler for protocol. We signed the papers, we toast to Isaac's memory, and then we gut the legacy projects." Leah pushed the heavy doors open. The conversation died instantly. The boardroom was cavernous. A long table made of rare black wood dominated the space, polished to a mirror shine. At the head of the table sat Landon Drake, looking like a judge presiding over a sentencing. To his right sat the Ford clan, Fiona, Tucker, and Trinity. Trinity, for some unfathomable reason, felt entitled to be there, scrolling through her phone with bored indifference. To Landon's left sat a row of somber-suited executives and minor cousins, the extras in the Ford drama. There was one empty chair. It was at the foot of the table, directly opposite Landon. Tucker looked up, his lip curling in a sneer. "You actually came," he laughed, shaking his head in mock disbelief. "I thought you'd have the sense to stay away after the funeral stunt. Looking for a handout, Leah? Or did you just come to return the keys to the guest cottage you never used?" "Sit down, Ms. King," Landon said, his voice cutting through Tucker's mockery like a scalpel. He gestured to the empty chair. Leah walked to the chair. Her legs felt heavy, but she kept her chin up. She pulled the chair out and sat. The leather was cool against her back. She felt exposed, isolated at the far end of the table, a tiny island in a sea of sharks. Trinity whispered something to Tucker, giggling behind a manicured hand. Tucker smirked. "Let's begin," Landon said. He didn't open a folder. He simply placed a single, heavy envelope on the table. It was thick, cream-colored, and sealed with red wax. Isaac Ford was a man of specific intent. He updated his last will and testament 3 weeks before his death. He was of sound mind, and this document was witnessed by 3 independent judges and filmed for verification. It is ironclad. Fiona waved a hand, her stack of diamond bracelets clinking with an expensive rattle. Yes, Landon. We know the drill. Isaac was difficult at the end. Paranoid. Skip the preamble. The estate goes to me as the surviving sibling, with executive control passing to Tucker as the heir apparent. Just give us the paperwork so we can sign. I have a lunch reservation." Landon ignored her. He picked up a silver letter opener and sliced the wax seal. The sound was crisp and loud in the silent room. "First," Landon read, his eyes scanning the document, "to my sister, Fiona Ford. I leave you the lakeside cottage in Vermont." Fiona blinked. "The cottage? That drafty shack? And?" "And," Landon continued, "a monthly stipend of $10,000. The silence that followed was deafening. "Excuse me?" Fiona stood up, her face turning a blotchy, furious purple. 10,000? A month? My driver costs more than that. My wine cellar costs more than that. This is a joke. Where is the rest? The shares? The liquid capital? "The stipend is contingent," Landon added, looking over his glasses, "on your immediate resignation from the board of directors and your permanent removal from any decision-making capacity within Ford Dynamics." Fiona looked like she had been slapped. She opened and closed her mouth, unable to form words. Tucker leaned forward, looking nervous now. "Okay, so he was Maud at Aunt Fiona. That's unfortunate, but the line of succession is clear. What about the company? What about the main trust?" "To my nephew, Tucker Gates," Landon read, his voice dropping to a lower, graver register. He looked up, locking eyes with Tucker. "I leave my collection of vintage watches, which you have always coveted." Tucker relaxed slightly. "Okay, good. Those are worth a few million. And? And the sum of $1. Tucker blinked. $1 million? $1, Landon corrected. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a small envelope. He slid it down the long, black table. It stopped right in front of Tucker. A single dollar bill. Isaac noted that since you value money above loyalty, you should start understanding its value from the bottom up. "This is insane." Tucker slammed his fist on the table, rattling the water glasses. He was senile. We'll contest this. I'm the CEO in waiting. I've spent 5 years grooming myself for this role. Who gets the company? Who gets the billions? The charity for blind cats? Trinity looked horrified, slowly scooting her chair away from Tucker as if failure was contagious. The entirety of the Ford estate, Landon read, his voice clear and ringing through the room, including 51% controlling interest in Ford Dynamics, the primary residence in Seattle, the global real estate portfolio, and the liquid assets totaling $4 billion. I leave to the only person who treated me with dignity when I had nothing to offer but my company. Landon paused. The room held its breath. Every eye turned to the foot of the table. I leave it all to Leah King. The room didn't just go silent. It felt like the air had been sucked out into space. The shock was physical. Leah sat, frozen. Her hands were gripping the armrests of her chair so hard her knuckles were white. $4 billion? The company? It was a mistake. It had to be. She felt a ringing in her ears. "That's a lie!" Fiona shrieked, breaking the spell. She lunged across the table, her nails clawing for the paper. "You forged this, Drake. She's sleeping with you. That's it. You two are conspiring to steal our birthright." Landon caught Fiona's wrist before she could touch the document. His grip was firm, professional, but unyielding. "Careful, Fiona. Assaulting the executor is a felony. Sit. Down." He released her, and she collapsed into her chair, sobbing with dry, angry heaves. "This can't be happening. I am a Ford." Tucker was staring at Leah, his mouth agape. He looked like a computer that had crashed. "Leah, you? You can't run a company. You folded laundry. You made soup. You don't even have a business degree," Landon continued, ignoring the outburst. "There is, however, a condition attached to the inheritance." "Aha!" Tucker pointed a shaking finger, hope flaring in his eyes. "I knew it. What is it? She has to marry me again. She has to split it with us?" "No," Landon said calmly. "The condition is regarding the moral character clause of the company bylaws. Isaac watched you all closely the last 5 years. He installed cameras in his own bedroom because he suspected theft." Fiona went pale. Her hand went to her throat. "He saw who stole cash from his wallet while he slept," Landon said, looking directly at Tucker. "He saw who mocked him to his face when he couldn't speak," he looked at Fiona. "And he saw who sat up with him through the night terrors, holding his hand, reading him poetry, and cleaning him without complaint." He looked at Leah. "The condition," Landon said, "is that Leah King must assume the role of chairwoman of the board immediately. She cannot sell the company for 5 years. She must run it, and—" Landon paused, a small, grim smile playing on his lips. "She has the sole authority to determine the employment status of any family members currently on the payroll." Leah's breath hitched. Isaac hadn't just given her money. He had given her a sword. Tucker's face transformed instantly. The arrogance vanished, replaced by a desperate, slimy charm. It was a transformation so grotesque it was almost fascinating. He stood up and walked toward Leah, ignoring Trinity completely. "Leah, honey," Tucker said, his voice trembling with forced affection. "Look, this is a lot. Obviously, Grandad Isaac saw how great of a team we were. We can fix this. I can help you. You don't know business, but I do. We can run it together. I can tear up the divorce papers. We can renew our vows." I was confused, stressed. Trinity meant nothing. Trinity gasped. "Excuse me? You told me she was a frumpy loser." "Shut up, Trinity," Tucker snapped, not looking away from Leah. "Leah, please, think about us. Think about our history." Leah looked at him. She looked at the man she had loved, the man she had served, the man who had thrown her away like garbage when he thought she had no value. "Stop," Leah said. Her voice was quiet, but it cut through his rambling. She stood up. The cheap fabric of her trousers didn't matter anymore. She felt a sudden surge of something hot and bright in her chest. It wasn't vengeance. It was justice. "You called me nothing, Tucker," Leah said, looking him in the eye. "You said I was worth less than the ink on the divorce papers. I was stressed. I didn't mean it. And you," she looked at Fiona, "you called me unpaid help." Fiona glared, wiping mascara from her cheeks, trying to muster her old intimidation. "You are help. You'll run this company into the ground in a week." "Well," Leah said, smoothing her blazer, "it looks like the help is now the boss." She turned to Landon. "Mr. Drake, what happens if I fire them?" "Then they are removed from the building immediately by security," Landon said with deep satisfaction. "And they lose access to all company credit cards, vehicles and housing provided by the trust." "Wait!" Trinity screeched. "Tucker promised me a trip to Cabo next week, on the company jet. You can't do this." Leah looked at Trinity. "You can still go to Cabo, Trinity, but I suggest you check the prices on commercial flights. I hear economy class builds character." Leah looked back at Tucker and Fiona. They were trembling, waiting for the axe to fall. "I won't fire you today," Leah said. Hope flared in Tucker's eyes. "Thank you, Leah. I knew you were sensible. We can—" "I won't fire you," Leah interrupted, her voice hard as steel. "Because I need to audit the books first. I want to see exactly how much you've stolen from Isaac. I want to see every expense report, every business trip, every bonus you approved for yourselves while the stock dropped." Tucker swallowed hard. "Go to your offices," Leah commanded. "Do not touch a single file. Do not delete a single email. If you do, I will have you arrested for corporate espionage. Get out of my sight." Tucker and Fiona stood there for a moment, stunned. Then, realizing they had no power, they turned and shuffled out of the room. Trinity ran after them, shouting about her reputation. Leah watched them go. When the doors closed, her knees gave out. She slumped back into the chair. "Breathe," Landon said gently. "I can't," Leah whispered. "Landon, I can't run a multinational conglomerate. I'm a barista. I dropped out of college to take care of my sick mother. I don't know stocks. I don't know mergers." Landon walked over and poured a glass of water from a crystal pitcher. He handed it to her. "Isaac knew that," Landon said. "He didn't leave you the company because you have an MBA. He left it to you because you have a moral compass. He knew the company was rotting from the inside. Tucker and Fiona were stripping it for parts. Isaac wanted someone who would protect the people who work here, not just the stock price." "But I don't know how," she whispered. "That's why I'm here," Landon said softly. "And that's why you're going to hire the best advisors in the city. You have the instincts, Leah. You just need the vocabulary." The transition from Leah King, outcast ex-wife, to Leah King, CEO, was violent and immediate. The next few days were a blur of activity that left Leah breathless. Landon had insisted she move out of her studio apartment immediately. "It's not safe," he had argued. "The press is camping on your fire escape. Fiona is desperate. You need walls." So, Leah moved back into the Ford estate. But this time, she didn't enter through the service entrance. She was driven through the main gates in the back of a black SUV. She refused to sleep in the master suite. It smelled of Tucker's cologne and bad memories. Instead, she took the guest wing, the sunniest part of the house, and invited Wren to move in with her. Wren arrived with 2 suitcases and a potted cactus. "This place is like a mausoleum," Wren whispered, looking at the vaulted ceilings. "We need to sage it, or burn it down. I haven't decided." "Let's start with sage," Leah said, managing a smile. Leah turned the library into her war room. It was a massive room, lined with mahogany bookshelves, but Leah covered the antique tables with laptops, whiteboards, and stacks of financial reports. She hired forensic accountants. She didn't trust the internal team. They were Fiona's cronies. She brought in outsiders, sharp-eyed auditors who didn't care about the Ford name. For 3 days, Leah barely slept. She drank coffee, read bylaws, and asked questions until her voice was hoarse. Landon was there every step of the way, guiding her, translating the legalese, and shielding her from the media storm raging outside. On the 4th day, Leah was sitting on the floor of the library, surrounded by receipts, when she found it. "Landon!" she called out. Landon looked up from his laptop. "What is it?" "Tucker mentioned a rainy day box once when he was drunk," Leah said, holding up a printout. "I thought it was a safe, but look at this recurring payment. Rainy Day Logistics." Landon took the paper. He frowned. "That's a shell company, registered in the Caymans." "Look at the amounts," Leah pointed. 50,000 here, 100,000 there, all marked as consulting fees or miscellaneous overhead. Over 5 years, Landon did the math quickly. "Leah, this totals over $12 million. "They were stealing," Leah said, her voice trembling with anger. "Not just skimming off the top. They were looting the company. Look at the dates. This withdrawal happened the same week they laid off 50 factory workers in Ohio because of budget cuts." Landon's face darkened. "This is embezzlement, and fraud, and tax evasion." "We have them," Leah said. "We can go to the police." "We can," Landon agreed. "But if we go to the police now, quietly, the board might try to cover it up to save the stock price. They'll let Tucker and Fiona resign with a golden parachute just to make them go away." Leah stood up. She walked to the window. She saw the gardeners working outside, men and women who depended on this company to feed their families. She thought about the workers in Ohio who lost their jobs so Tucker could buy a new watch. "No," Leah said firmly. "No golden parachutes. No quiet resignations. They humiliated me publicly. They destroyed the lives of their workers publicly. So we are going to end this publicly." "What do you have in mind?" Landon asked, a hint of admiration in his voice. "The annual Ford Charity Gala is this Saturday," Leah said, turning around. Her eyes were hard. "It's Fiona's pride and joy, the biggest social event of the season. Everyone will be there. The press, the politicians, the investors." "Fiona is still organizing it," Landon noted. "She thinks it's her way back into society's good graces." "Let her organize it," Leah said. "Let her spend the company's money on champagne and ice sculptures. Let her think she's safe. And then?" "And then," Leah smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes, "we show the world exactly who the Fords really are." Just then, Leah's phone buzzed on the desk. It was a text from Tucker. "Leah, please, I know you're angry, but we're family. Don't listen to Drake. He's using you. Meet me for dinner? Just us." "I miss you." Leah stared at the screen. 6 months ago, that text would have made her heart race. She would have made excuses for him. She would have hoped. Now she just felt disgusted. She typed a reply. "My schedule is full. Contact my assistant to make an appointment. Current wait time for non-employees is 6 months." She hit send and tossed the phone onto the pile of evidence. The discard was over. The reckoning was about to begin. The next 2 weeks were a blur of caffeine, spreadsheets, and cold, hard reality. Leah moved into the Ford estate, but she refused to let it swallow her. She took the guest room, the one with the best light, and turned the library into her command center. Wren had moved in too, treating the mansion like a haunted house she was determined to exorcise. She had already replaced the somber velvet drapes in the library with bright, modern blinds, and filled the Sub-Zero fridge, which used to hold only champagne and kale, with frozen pizzas and energy drinks. "You have to see this," Wren said one evening, sliding a tablet across the antique mahogany desk. The blue light of the screen illuminated her face, highlighting the exhaustion they all felt. Leah rubbed her temples. She was learning fast, absorbed in crash courses on corporate finance, but the sheer scale of the corruption was exhausting. Landon sat across from her, his tie loosened, sleeves rolled up, looking less like a high-powered attorney and more like a detective working a cold case. "What is it?" Leah asked, leaning forward. "I did some digging into Trinity's socials," Wren said, tapping the screen. "I cross-referenced her posts with the dates Tucker was away on business in the company logs." Leah looked at the screen. It was a damning timeline. March 12th. Tucker charges $45,000 to the company account for client acquisition in Milan. March 13th. Trinity posts a photo on Instagram tagged in Lake Como with the caption, "Bay spoiling me," and a bottle of Cristal clearly visible. And here, Landon pointed to a ledger open in front of him. May 4th, $120,000 for consulting fees paid to a shell company called Apex Solutions. "Who owns Apex Solutions?" Leah asked, dread pooling in her stomach. "Fiona Ford," Landon said grimly. "I traced the registration agent. It leads back to a P.O. box she's been renting since 2018. She's been siphoning money out of the employee pension fund to pay for her gambling debts in Macau." Leah felt sick. The pension fund? The money for the factory workers? The people who stand on the line for 10 hours a day? "Yes," Landon said, his voice hard. "It's illegal, it's immoral, and it's a federal crime. RICO statutes might even apply, given the organized nature of the theft." Leah stood up, pacing the room. The Persian rug beneath her feet felt like quicksand. The old Leah would have been terrified of destroying the family reputation. The old Leah would have worried about the scandal. But the new Leah thought of Mike, the security guard, who had mentioned he was delaying retirement because of market fluctuations. It wasn't the market. It was Fiona. "We have enough to bury them," Landon said, watching her closely. "We can go to the police right now." "Not yet," Leah said, stopping in front of the window. The rain lashed against the glass, mirroring the storm inside her. "If we go to the police now, quietly, the stock tanks, the board panics. They might try to cut a deal to keep it quiet, let Fiona and Tucker resign with health issues, and keep their dignity." "So what do we do?" Wren asked, grinning sharply. "I hope it involves public humiliation." "The annual Ford Charity Gala is this Saturday," Leah said, turning to face them. "It's the biggest social event of the year. Senators, investors, the press, everyone will be there." "Fiona organizes that gala," Landon noted. "It's her pride and joy. She uses it to launder her reputation." "Exactly," Leah said. "She thinks she still runs this family. She thinks she can bully me into a settlement. I'm going to let her think that until Saturday. I want her to feel safe. I want Tucker to think he's won." "That's ruthless," Landon said, a slow smile spreading across his face. "I learned from the best," Leah replied. "They taught me that weakness is a choice, and I'm done choosing it." The Ford Charity Gala was held in the grand ballroom of the eccentric Hotel L'Amour. It was a spectacle of excess, a sea of black ties, sequins, towering floral arrangements, and fake smiles. The air smelled of expensive perfume and desperation. Fiona was in her element. She wore a crimson gown that looked like a bloodstain against the white marble of the ballroom. She held court near the champagne fountain, laughing loudly, clutching the arm of a confused senator. Tucker was beside her, looking nervous but trying to project confidence in a tuxedo that was slightly too tight. Trinity was there too, wearing a diamond necklace that Leah recognized from the insurance manifest as company property, stolen property. Leah arrived late. She didn't sneak in the back. She didn't look down. She walked through the front doors, flanked by Landon on her right and Wren on her left. Leah wore a dress of shimmering gold, structured and bold, armor made of silk. It caught the light, making her look like a flame walking into a room of shadows. Her hair was slicked back, her makeup sharp and flawless. She wasn't the grey mouse anymore. The room went quiet. The whispers started again, but this time they weren't mocking. They were fearful. Is that her? She looks dangerous. I heard she fired the CFO yesterday. Fiona marched over, her face tight with forced polite aggression. You have some nerve showing up here, Leah. This is my event. I explicitly told security. It's a Ford Dynamics event, Leah corrected calmly, her voice steady. Paid for by the company accounts, which means it's my event. Enjoy it while you can, Fiona spat, leaning in close so only Leah could hear. My lawyers are filing the competency suit on Monday. We have witnesses who will testify you're unstable. You'll be back to serving coffee by the end of the month. Actually, Leah said, raising her voice slightly so the nearby board members could hear, I wanted to talk about that. Why don't we go on stage? I have a speech prepared. What? No. You are not speaking. Leah walked past her, straight to the podium. Landon signaled the AV booth, where a very loyal IT director was waiting. The microphone feedback whined, silencing the crowd. Leah gripped the sides of the podium. The lights were blinding, but she didn't blink. Good evening, everyone, Leah said. Her voice didn't shake. I'm Leah King, the chairwoman of Ford Dynamics. Polite, confused applause rippled through the room. Tucker looked like he was about to vomit. I know there have been questions about the transition, Leah continued, about Isaac Ford's legacy. He believed in truth. He believed that a company is only as strong as its integrity. She paused. Tonight, we are raising money for the underprivileged. But charity begins at home. Or rather, it ends when people steal from their own home to fund a lifestyle they didn't earn. Cut the mic, Fiona screamed from the floor, rushing the stage. Security! Remove her! The security works for me now, Fiona, Leah said into the mic, her voice booming. Mike, the head of security, stepped in front of Fiona, blocking her path. He crossed his arms, looking down at her with zero sympathy. Please step back, Mum. Turn around, Leah commanded the audience. The massive projection screen behind the stage, which had been displaying the charity logo, flickered. Tonight, I am releasing the results of an independent forensic audit, Leah announced. The screen changed. It wasn't a PowerPoint. It was a video compilation. It showed the bank transfers, the dates, the photos of Trinity and Milan on the company dime. It showed the wire transfers from the pension fund to the Macau casino, with Fiona's signature clearly visible. It showed Tucker expensing a Ferrari as office equipment. The crowd gasped. Phones came out instantly. The flashbulbs started popping like strobe lights. A live stream began broadcasting the evidence to the world. This is a lie, Fiona shrieked, her composure shattering. Turn it off. He's manipulating the data. Tucker Gates and Fiona Ford have embezzled over $12 million from this company, Leah announced to the stunned room. They raided the pension fund. They stole from the very people who built this company. As of this moment, Leah said, looking directly at Tucker, They are terminated for cause, and the evidence has already been delivered to the district attorney." Tucker tried to run. He actually turned and sprinted toward the exit, pushing a waiter aside. But the double doors opened, and uniformed police officers stepped in. The flashing blue lights outside the hotel windows illuminated the ballroom in a stark, cold wash. Trinity, seeing the ship sinking, ripped the diamond necklace off her neck and threw it at Tucker. "I didn't know. He told me it was his money. I'm breaking up with you, you loser." She turned to the cameras, playing the victim instantly. Leah watched from the stage as officers handcuffed Fiona. The matriarch was screaming, demanding to call the governor, but for the first time in her life, no one was listening. Tucker was weeping as he was led away. Leah felt no joy, only a heavy, final relief. It was done. The rot was gone. Landon stepped up beside her on stage and squeezed her hand. "You did it." "We did it," she whispered, leaning into him. Leah King walked through the factory floor of Ford Dynamics. She wasn't wearing a suit. She was wearing a hard hat, safety glasses, and a reflective vest. "Morning, Ms. King," a foreman waved from the assembly line. "Morning, Dave. How's the new ventilation system?" "Works like a charm. Air quality is up 40%. Thanks for signing off on it. We've been asking for it for years, but Fiona always said it was too expensive." Leah smiled. Health is never too expensive. The company stock had dipped initially after the arrests. The scandal was massive. But as Leah implemented transparent policies, reinstated the pension funds, using the seized assets from Fiona and Tucker, and pivoted the company toward ethical tech, the stock had recovered and then soared to an all-time high. She wasn't the traditional CEO. She didn't golf. She didn't shout. She listened. And it turned out that was exactly what the market, and the world, wanted. Fiona was currently under house arrest, awaiting trial. She had lost her social standing, her friends, and her dignity. She spent her days in the drafty Vermont cottage, the only property she was allowed to keep, yelling at lawyers who were slowly abandoning her. Tucker had taken a plea deal. He avoided significant jail time by testifying against Fiona, claiming she manipulated him. He was ruined financially. The last Leah heard, he was working at a car rental desk at the airport, wearing a polyester uniform that didn't fit, checking out sedans for tourists who didn't know his name. Trinity had tried to pivot to a redemption arc on social media, but the internet never forgets. Her subscriber count plummeted, and she was forced to get a real job as a receptionist at a dental clinic. Leah walked back to the executive offices. The atmosphere was different now. It was lighter. People smiled. Landon was waiting for her in her office. He held 2 coffees, black for him, oat milk latte for her. They weren't just colleagues anymore. It had started with late-night strategy sessions during the audit, then dinner to celebrate the small victories, then quiet weekends at the lake house. It was slow, respectful, and real. "You have a meeting with the Japanese investors in an hour," Landon said, handing her the cup, "and Ren wants to show you the new logo designs." "I'm ready," Leah said, taking the coffee. She walked to the window, looking out at the Seattle skyline. The glass reflected her image, strong, capable, at peace. She thought about the girl who had signed the divorce papers, thinking her life was over. She thought about Isaac, dying alone in that big house until she came along. "He knew," Leah said softly. "Isaac knew I could do this, even when I didn't." "He knew you were strong," Landon corrected, stepping up behind her and wrapping his arms around her waist. He rested his chin on her shoulder. "He just gave you the keys. You're the one who drove the car out of the ditch." Leah leaned back against him, closing her eyes for a moment. She was tired, yes. The work never stopped. But she was free. She was respected. and for the first time in her life, she was loved for who she was, not what she could do for someone else. She opened her eyes and looked at her reflection. She didn't see a discard, or a placeholder, or a victim. She saw a survivor. She saw a leader. She saw a queen. "Come on," Leia said, turning around and kissing Landon on the cheek. "Let's go build something." The story of Leia King exploded on the internet. Channels dedicated to justice and karma dissected every moment of the trial, praising her composure and celebrating the downfall of the arrogant Fords. It became a modern parable. Be careful who you step on, because they might be the ground that supports you, or the earthquake that swallows you whole. If you enjoyed this story of ultimate karma and redemption, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications so you never miss a story. Remember, your worth isn't defined by how others treat you, but by how you rebuild when they try to tear you down. See you in the next video.